Hello everyone and welcome back to my channel Irfan the John Bull. Today I've come up with yet another interesting lesson for the beginners who want to learn the grammar. It is about the subject, predicate, clause and the phrases. But before I get started, I would like to greet you all in the Islamic manner. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Let's begin straight away with the subject. Subject, when we talk about a subject is a word, or sometimes it's more than a word that we talk about. When we discuss about something, it's a subject. But remember one thing, subject may be a word, it may be a noun, or sometimes it may be a word that's pronoun. Remember this thing, it can be noun as well as the pronoun. And the other thing is that sometimes it can be a word or sometimes it can be more than a word. But the condition is that it should be talked about. There are four or three things that we need to look when we want to know what's the subject in the sentence. Number one, it should be most probably the first word. I'm talking about the subject. Number two, it should be either noun or a pronoun. Right? Number three, it should be discussed. So when you see all the three things together in a word, definitely it's a subject. So what's subject? If I define the word subject, it is defined as a word or sometimes more than a word that we talk about. Right? Talk about. See, it's very simple. So you have a word that you talk about is subject. Let's give an example. Sarah speaks fluent English. Right? Sarah is a word that we talk about, is basically a subject. If you see all the three qualities of a subject, you may find all the three in there. Look at this. Number one, it's the first word. Number two, it's either noun or a pronoun. It's a noun. And number third, it is discussed. This is what we call a subject. Right? But there is one interesting thing that we need to look at. For example, you see, speaking is a good thing. For example, somebody asked me this question. So, if always we have a subject in the beginning, how do we have a verb in the beginning? Very simple. This is not just a verb. If you just see, this is a non-finite verb. It's actually here a gerund. Gerund is basically a verbal noun. So it is actually a verb, but it is working as a noun. So it's working as a noun. It's noun as well. So another thing that I need to talk about as subject is that sometimes subject can be simple and sometimes the subject can be compound. For example, I need to rub the board, excuse me. For example, you see, with this, as I wrote, Sarah speaks fluent English. So we have a subject here. It is actually a simple subject. What's a compound subject? Sarah and I are best friends. I hope you understand what compound subject is. See, two subjects coming together, joined up with a conjunction. These are two subjects together with a conjunction. So this is known as a compound subject. Right? So this is all about the subject. Let's talk about the predicate. Very simple. You have a word that you talk about is basically a subject. But you have the other words that you say something about the subject is basically a predicate. As I said, subject can be a noun or a pronoun, but you get to take care of one thing. When you see the predicate, it has a main verb. It has a finite verb. It has a changeable verb. When I talk about a finite verb, it basically means a verb that keeps on changing according to the tenses and according to the subjects. See, as I wrote this sentence, Sarah speaks fluent English. Sarah is a subject, and this all is a predicate, right? Sarah and I, a subject, a compound subject, and these all words are predicate, right? I hope this is pretty simple. You have a word that you talk about is subject. You have the words that you say something about the subject is basically a predicate. In our day-to-day routine, we often talk about things, and the things that we talk about are all the subjects. They are all subjects. And when we say something about those words, about those subjects, they are predicates. Now let's talk about the class. Very simple thing and very interesting, especially for the students of 11th, 12th. They need to just keep an eye on this particular thing. See, when we talk about class, classes are a group of words having their own subjects and predicates. And most importantly, you got to look at one thing. There should be a finite verb. As I said, finite verb. There are two types of verbs basically. I don't want to talk about that because it will drag my topic unnecessarily long. But still, I'll provide, since this word came twice in my lecture, I'll provide a small description of what finite verb means. But first, let me write the definition. So this is for the class. Group of words having a finite verb and its own and their own subjects and predicates, right? So when you have group of words having a let's first talk about the finite verb. What finite verb means? See, finite verb means a verb that keeps on changing, that we use in the tenses. For example, you see we have two types of verbs. You see, she eats food. Very simple. And I want to eat food. Let's just take only one example. That's this one. I want to eat food. We've got two verbs here. If you just have a look. Number one is want and number two is eat. But if I write the sentences, you see there's a difference. For example, you see, she wants to eat food. Or I wanted to eat food. Now you see an interesting thing happening over here in the three sentences. That's the first verb, want, it keeps on changing. In first sentence it was want, the other sentence wants, the other sentence wanted, right? It keeps on changing, but the eat is same in form in all the three sentences. So what it means is basically we have two different types of verbs. One, they keep on changing like want, and the other one is that they don't change according to the tenses or the subjects. So the one that changes are known as finite verbs. So what we are talking about here in the class is basically this verb, the finite verb. So you see sometimes an expression like this only, to eat food. This is not a class. You say that there's a verb, but this verb is actually a non-finite verb. What we require in the class is a finite verb. So they are classes on the basis of these verbs because they are finite verbs, right? So this is a class. Now, there are some misconceptions in the students that they say that clauses always have complete senses. This is wrong because we have two different types of clauses. One is the principal clause or the main clause. The other one is the subordinate clause or dependent clause. So the dependent clauses or the subordinate clauses never have the complete sense, right? I don't need to put an example, but still I will put the example for both the clauses. See, as I write, for example, these clauses, they are all principal or main because they complete their senses. I want to eat the food. Actually, he's talking about that he needs to eat the food. But if I write a clause like this, if I speak English. So this is also a clause because we have a finite verb here because it keeps on changing. If I write if he, there comes speaks. But this clause doesn't have a complete sense. This clause doesn't have a complete sense. So this is subordinate clause. So subordinate clauses never have complete senses. So this is wrong to say that clauses always have a complete sense. This brings me to the last thing, but not least, that is phrases. As I said, for subject there are three qualities. Similarly, for the phrases, there are four qualities. To recognize whether it's a phrase or not, you got to look at four different things. What are those? For phrases, very simple. Number one, group of words. Very simple. Number 2, without finite verb. Number 3, part of the sentence. And number 4, incomplete sense. Right? It's very simple to understand. So you see, the phrases basically are group of words without a verb that form the part of the sentence and never complete their sentences. I'll put down some examples. See, one of the examples I can write is in the park, at home, my father. All are group of words, but they lack the verbs. They lack a finite verb, right? And they are part of the sentence. For example, like this, this is actually the part of the marker, so this is worth nothing. This is of no use until it gets attached to this. And gets attached to this, now it's worth using. So similarly, these group of words are worth nothing unless it has the other thing with it. So this forms actually a part of the sentence. This is not a sentence. This is a part of the sentence. This is a part of the sentence, and so is this. So number 1 is they are a group of words. Number 2, they are without verbs. Number 3, they are part of the sentence, and they are incomplete in senses. This is what we call it phrases. There are different types of phrases. We'll be talking about them inshallah in the next video, which are coming very soon. Till then, stay safe, stay at home. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.